This is Notser, and we are looking at the proposed, yes, proposed still, because it's in a public test server, changes of the Japanese destroyers. Now, I have played the tiers 8, 9, and 10. I have not played the 5, 6, and 7, wherever the other changes occurred. I don't have the right to do that. I guess they want you to have to level all the way from 1, the normal, old-fashioned way, so I'm just not going to do that. Sorry, I can't dedicate 100,000 hours in order to get all the way up to a tier 7 Shiratsuyu or something like that. But in general, we know roughly what they've done. So roughly, what have they done? They have improved the turret traverse globally by about 3 seconds. Now, some are better than others, but in general, they improved the turret's traversing speed. It is not competitive with other lines, but it is better than it was. I will give them that. I can't deny it. It does feel better than it used to. It still feels very awkward to use. Secondly, they improved the detectability on the torpedoes by 100 meters. Yes, 100 meters. The bare minimum improvement, might I add. I don't even think it's possible for them to improve it any smaller than 100 meters. The good examples is the short-range torpedoes of the Shimakaze, 1.9 kilometers of detection on those torpedoes. So when the torpedo gets within 1.9 of your ship, it's auto-detected immediately. Now, it's going to be 1.8. Oh, joy. It's such a better ship. And conversely, the mid-tier, it's 1.8 to 1.7. Ho, 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 ho. Extreme buffs coming. I know. Enemy Ibuki, send my torpedoes in an effort to hopefully hit him. He is within range. These are the F3 torpedoes without any torpedo acceleration. It's pretty much my standard torpedo build. Like my Germans or my Americans, I just sub out the adrenaline rush skill for expert marksman to make the guns feel a little bit acceptable. A little bit acceptable. And the Ibuki keeps going. In fact, he has no idea what's about to happen to him. And I think that's a product of the public test server. I don't believe that that's a good representation of the average player, especially not in North America. This is something I am pretty confident in. North America generally has the most destroyers per battle. The Russian server generally has the least destroyers per battle. And I think they're getting most of their balancing from the Russian server. Why not? That's the server they play on. It's very weird, and I'm sure it is. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm sure it is very weird to see the differences in the meta focus on each server. Some really like battleships, like 80% of the group is battleships. Some, for whatever reason, play a lot of cruisers, and I would never play a lot of cruisers. And North America is one of those where we play just as much destroyers as we do battleships, and the class that is suffering is the cruiser. And that's a pretty sweet torpedo beat right there. So I can only imagine how weird it must feel. How your data set on the Russian server would suggest that destroyers are not fun. We need to make sure that destroyers are fun, but people complain a lot because they don't want to play as the destroyers. So we've got to struggle with our community really not being interested in it. I get it, but as a purely destroyer main, and I think it's safe to say that I am a destroyer main, this is not a measurable improvement. There's nothing here that makes me say, all right, the Japanese are back. This is a very tiny change. Very tiny. They still give up whenever they use their guns. You never want to be caught out in a position where you use your guns. And I think the problem is that the American destroyers have the same exact concealment as the Japanese. So the Japanese don't want to risk their ships. They don't want to get close and die to the Americans, who will easily eat them for lunch. And that's what the Americans should do. The Americans can't long-range gun. They can't. It's so bad, they have to brawl. I get that. But probably the most important metric on torpedoes is the torpedo detectability and the reaction time given to a player. And the Japanese are way down compared to everyone else. Their detectability, coupled with the reaction time on average, it's something like 10 seconds. 9 to 10 seconds at best. That's the absolute best. If you have everything designed the right way, the target does not have vigilance, aircraft, an inkling that you are there. You have 9 to 10 seconds to cover the distance that they will see the torpedo and have time to react. That is an eternity. Most cruisers, most destroyers, and almost most battleships can do their rudder in that time, at least get it started. It's very rare that I find a chance to hit a target when they know I'm in their area, have vigilance, aircraft, hydroacoustic, whatever. That's just not going to happen. Why are the Americans so successful? Why are the Germans so successful? Because they're working at like 7 to 8 seconds reaction time. Yeah. I think we need to get closer to that reaction time, wargaming. But the torpedoes, they do so much damage. Yeah? That's what they're good at. I don't understand this. If players are having issues with torpedoes, they can go vigilance. They can get direction center catapult fighters. They can try and have destroyers and cruisers be the detectors in front screen for the battleships. That's what they're supposed to do. Why is that an issue, wargaming? If I'm a ship captain and I am using vigilance because I always die to torpedoes and I want to at least minimize the threat to my ship, maybe it's a battleship, I'm going to take vigilance, right? It's going to be one of those skills I take. They're totally cool with it. The 1.8, the buffed version of the torpedoes, it now has a detectability of 2.25 kilometers. You see, not even joking, because vigilance extends the torpedo detection by 25%. So 1.8 obviously by 1.25. There you go. That's where you get that number. 2.25. That's almost the same detection as a body of being next to a ship itself. That's a little insane. The torpedoes have a detectability and auto detection that is the same as giant ships. If you were to compare it to the Americans and the Soviets, Soviets are about 1.1. And if I times that by 1.25, I get 1.375. A very tiny improvement, right? Oh, 1.375. Oh, man. 1.4 times 1.25. 1.7. Not even with vigilance is the Americans and the Soviets at the same level of detection as the base torpedoes. The base torpedoes. This is the issue, wargaming. This is the point that needs to be addressed. I can live with terrible guns. I can live with low health. I can't live with torpedoes being so easily detected that they are equal to ship detection, body detection when you're around an island or near smoke. That's just ludicrous. We're talking about a very tiny object in the water has the same detection as a massive ship sitting on top of the water. But that's only with vigilance, Notser. Yeah, you guys balance around that. You have denied the Japanese for the longest time range on their guns because stealth firing Japanese would just be completely broken, so let's not give them extended range on their guns until stealth firing is taken out of the game. So I'm not really impressed with the changes. Now, am I being too critical? I really like destroyers, guys. I played the Japanese from day one. I really enjoyed them. Isokaze, Minekaze, great memories of torpedoing a ton of people. Fubuki, Tier 8 Fubuki was great. Kagedo was always pretty crappy. Shimakaze, very powerful. I only had the powerful Shimakaze for a couple months, and then it was gone. They hard-nerfed the torpedo detection, and it's been irrelevant ever since. At least in my opinion. The Germans feel great. The reason the Germans are so successful is they are consistent. You can consistently use the same strategy moment to moment, and it will basically work. Yeah, their smoke is very short, but their AP guns are really effective. Whenever you see a broadside target, it's great. HE, it's okay. Quick turret traverse, fast torpedo rearm, and torpedo accelerated. You can have that 2-kilometer range window roughly that I greatly seek. The Germans feel very rewarding, and I don't feel like I'm giving up anything. On the Japanese, it's about almost twice as long to rearm my torpedoes. So you would expect the torpedoes are able to one-shot a battleship like this, and this is the perfect example why you can't trust anything you get from the public test server. These guys are probably playing the game, or these ships, for the very first time. They're just not aware of how you're supposed to play the game. That is not a realistic attack. Nobody does that in the live server. Not a single Yamato is going to move forward, see that I am detected, and refuse to fire at me. Yeah, woohoo! The Japanese and 1 torpedo salvo, they can kill every single ship in the game. Whoa, big whoop. I think they truly are afraid of the potential that the Japanese have. They think that the game will divert directly back to like 2 years ago. We're never going to go back to that wargaming. Everyone's more informed. There's more skills that people can use to protect themselves. There's more lines. We're never going back, wargaming. Just see, for one public test server, just make the torpedoes the exact same as they once were. I'm just curious. I want to see what that world looks like. If it's completely broken, it's completely broken. Obviously, public test server, they're going to be making the same goofy mistakes as they do here. So even that data is going to be corrupted. But I just don't know why the Japanese are allowed to suffer. I did test them. It felt the same way. I felt like I was only getting torpedo strikes on players that were unaware and not really paying attention to the surroundings. Either way, I hope this was helpful. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.